It all began when King Harris, the 21-year-old son of rap mogul T.I. and R&B star Tiny Harris, landed himself in a mess no one saw coming. Picked up for something as small as missing a court date, it should have been a quick in-and-out situation. Paperwork, a lecture, maybe a fine, and done. But this is King we're talking about, the self-proclaimed rebel of the Harris dynasty. Growing up in the glare of fame, every move he made was under a magnifying glass, and still, he loved breaking the script. While the world expected designer suits and private jets, King was out here chasing chaos on his own terms. Little did anyone know, this minor mistake was about to become a full-blown nightmare. Once locked inside a Georgia facility, things took a terrifying turn. He wasn't violent, wasn't dangerous, just another celebrity kid serving time for a small infraction. But hours later, guards found King unconscious, bloodied, and fighting for his life. Now, here's where it gets straight up suspicious. Every single security camera in his block mysteriously went dark right before the attack. Yep, all of them. Officials called it a technical glitch, but let's be honest, glitches don't conveniently delete evidence. Someone wanted those cameras off, and they made sure of it. Every single camera in King Harris's block mysteriously went dark, poof, like someone hit the delete evidence button on purpose. Seriously, how does that even happen? No footage, no proof, just a suspicious blanket of silence. The prison tried to play it off, calling it a technical glitch, but come on, experts were quick to call BS. That kind of blackout doesn't just happen on its own. Someone had to want those cameras off, and they made it happen. With no video and no witnesses, the questions started piling up faster than the excuses. Was this just a random prison fight gone wrong, or was something way darker at play? And here's where it gets even messier. King wasn't just minding his business in there. He'd been talking, loudly, about what he'd seen behind those walls, things that were apparently never meant to leave them. Sources close to him say he was planning to tell his lawyer everything, maybe even file a formal complaint about the shady conditions inside. But before he could, boom, everything went sideways. Was this a warning? An attempt to shut him up before he spilled something big? The thought alone haunted his family, especially his parents, T.I. and Tiny Harris, who were already drowning in public drama. Just weeks earlier, the couple had been slapped with fresh controversy from influencer Sabrina Peterson. Sure, the case was dismissed, but once the internet smells scandal, it never forgets. As the internet detectives got busy, people began connecting King Harris's mysterious arrest to his parents' messy past like it was all part of some twisted family curse. Was this just a wild coincidence, or something way deeper? The timing couldn't have been crueler. King had just celebrated becoming a dad, proudly posting photos of his newborn like his life was finally getting on track. But instead of changing diapers, he was now lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines, fighting for his life. The irony was gut-punching. One moment he's cradling his baby, the next is clinging to survival. Online, the theories exploded faster than a Twitter feud. Fans started connecting the dots between King's arrest and T.I. and Tiny's old controversies, whispering that maybe this wasn't just about King at all. Could he have been targeted because of his last name? The deeper people dug, the darker it looked. And then came the one detail no one could shake off, the total blackout of every camera right before the attack. Not one angle, not one clip. Nothing. Authorities stayed suspiciously silent, tossing out zero answers. It wasn't just missing footage anymore, it was a wall of silence, and for the Harris family, that silence was screaming louder than words. Nobody was saying a word. The longer the silence dragged on, the louder the questions got. It wasn't just the prison system playing dumb, oh no, everyone involved suddenly forgot how to talk. Officials kept repeating the same tired excuse, technical malfunction. Please. Nobody was buying that. Experts even jumped in, calling it what it looked like, intentional. The odds of multiple security units going dark at the same time? Practically zero. Someone flipped that switch, and they did it on purpose. Still, there was no investigation, no accountability, not even a pretend effort to dig for answers. So who had that kind of power? And why did it all happen seconds before King Harris was brutally attacked? For the Harris family, the silence was infuriating. Each day, the official story kept twisting. First it was a minor fight, then a random incident, and then, nothing made sense at all. As more bits and pieces leaked, one thing became obvious. King wasn't just another inmate who got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was a target. T.I. and Tiny could see it plain as day. Something inside that prison stank of cover-up, and the deeper they dug, the darker it got. This wasn't just about their son getting hurt, it was about who made it happen, and why the truth was vanishing right in front of them. The deeper T.I. and Tiny Harris dug, the clearer it became. Someone wasn't just hiding the truth, they were trying to bury it 6 feet under. One thing was undeniable: King Harris had made enemies. But who, and for what reason? It wasn't just the guards he'd called out. He was poking at the entire system. Inside those walls, King had been exposing the ugly truth: corruption, extortion, favoritism, the kind of stuff that makes powerful people sweat. Word was, King had gotten too bold, too loud, and too dangerous for those running the show. And in a place where silence is survival, his voice might have sealed his fate. His beating wasn't random. It was a message, and someone wanted that message heard loud and clear. But who was behind it, and who was it meant for? T.I. and Tiny weren't new to chaos. Their fame had always come with whispers, lawsuits, and headlines. But this was personal. It wasn't about cleaning up their son's reputation. It was about uncovering who orchestrated the attack and why. King's life had changed forever, and his parents were done playing polite. The timing, though, was suspicious. Just as the family was crawling out from years of public scandals, another storm hit. Fresh off the heels of accusations from influencer Sabrina Peterson, which had barely died down, the Harris family was thrown right back into the fire. Only this time, it wasn't just about reputation. It was about survival. Influencer Sabrina Peterson, yes, the same one who once tried to reopen that messy lawsuit against T.I. and Tiny Harris for misconduct and defamation, suddenly found her name back in the headlines. The case had been tossed out, but the allegations never really died. They just lingered in the air like smoke. Peterson's claims painted the family as manipulative and controlling, accusations the Harrises had always fiercely denied. But now, with King Harris lying in a hospital bed fighting for his life, those old stories started crawling back out of the grave. The timing was just too suspicious. Was this brutal attack on King somehow linked to the family's past scandals, or was it a twisted, tragic coincidence? As word of King's condition spread, the speculation grew louder by the minute. Soon, the internet was on fire, connecting dots that maybe weren't even there. People pointed out how the media had always treated T.I. and Tiny like controversy magnets, how every success of theirs somehow came with a scandal attached. So what was this? Karma? A cover-up? Or was King just a victim caught in a storm that wasn't even his? The part that sent chills through everyone was the silence. The prison system, usually so quick to churn out statements, suddenly went mute. No reports, no footage, no explanations, just a thick wall of nothing. That silence said more than words ever could, and for the Harris family, it confirmed their worst fear. Somebody knew exactly what happened to King, and was working overtime to make sure no one else ever found out. The tension around the Harris family was reaching a breaking point. T.I. and Tiny had never been the sit-back-and-stay-quiet type. They were fighters, always had been. But this time, it wasn't about headlines or reputation. It was about their son, and it felt like someone was intentionally trying to silence him. That thought alone lit a fire under them. King's recovery suddenly became secondary to something much bigger: the truth. Who orchestrated this, why they did it, and what exactly they were trying to hide became the family's obsession. Every new clue only opened 10 more questions. King had spoken too loudly, too fearlessly, and that courage might have been the very thing that put a target on his back. Yet, as time passed, the truth seemed to drift further out of reach, like someone was working hard to keep it buried. Was this attack really about King, or was it a warning to his parents? Was the young man caught in the crossfire of a game much bigger than himself? The questions wouldn't stop, and neither would the family. Someone, whether inside those prison walls or pulling strings from the outside, had gone too far, and T.I. and Tiny were determined to drag them into the light. This was no longer about one violent night. It was about uncovering a truth powerful enough to shake everything around them. The deeper they dug, the clearer it became: this wasn't a random act of brutality. It was part of something calculated, something that didn't want to be found. The deeper the Harris family dug, the clearer it became. They weren't just battling a broken system, they were staring down something far more powerful. It felt like an invisible hand was working overtime to keep the truth locked away. T.I. and Tiny had already brought in private investigators and a small army of lawyers, because trusting the authorities, that ship had sailed. From day one, everything about King Harris's case reeked of cover-up. The timeline didn't match, the details kept changing, and the so-called official story shifted every time someone asked a new question. What was supposed to be a clean-cut investigation had twisted into a maze of lies and half-answers. And the more the silence grew, the louder the suspicion got. Then came the real shocker. As the investigators pushed deeper, they discovered that the prison wasn't just ignoring the truth, it was actively burying it. The camera glitch that erased the footage? Not a glitch at all, but a carefully planned blackout. It wasn't an accident, it was a move. The facility had left King exposed, vulnerable, and then scrambled to wipe every trace of that night from existence. Whispers from inside the prison started leaking out, and what they revealed sent chills down everyone's spine. King's attack wasn't some random inmate scuffle, it was orchestrated. Someone had planned it, executed it, and then worked to make sure no one would ever find out how deep it really went. The attack on King Harris wasn't some random burst of violence, it was carefully orchestrated. King had become a problem, not just because he carried his father T.I.'s famous name, but because he'd started poking holes in a system built on silence. Inside that prison, King was talking, loudly, about the corruption, the manipulation, the way power was twisted to benefit a few and crush the rest. He wasn't scared to call it out, and that made him dangerous. But courage comes with a price tag, and King paid it. Sources claimed he had stumbled onto something huge, evidence of a network of corruption that stretched beyond those concrete walls. He was too bold, too loud, and in the end, that fearless honesty may have sealed his fate. Whoever orchestrated the attack wasn't just trying to hurt King, they were sending a message. This was about control, about reminding everyone what happens when you speak out. If someone like King, with fame, money, and attention on his side, could be taken down so easily, what chance did anyone else have? The warning was loud and clear: stay quiet, or end up like him. But here's where it gets even darker. Investigators soon realized King's attack wasn't an isolated event. The timing lined up almost too perfectly. It all happened just after he started talking openly about what he'd witnessed behind bars, just when he was ready to bring that truth to light. Had witnessed inside just as he had begun to reach out to his lawyer. He was about to blow just as King Harris was about to blow the lid off something big. Everything suddenly went wrong. At the exact same time, T.I. and Tiny Harris's old legal drama with influencer Sabrina Peterson came crawling back from the dead. Peterson's dismissed lawsuit, packed with accusations of misconduct and manipulation, was once again making headlines, dragging the Harris name through the mud. The timing was just too perfect. Some started whispering that King's brutal attack wasn't a coincidence at all, but part of a bigger plan, a calculated move to break the Harris family from the inside out. Maybe it wasn't just about silencing King. Maybe it was a warning shot aimed directly at his famous parents. Was someone using their son as leverage? A message to T.I., Tiny, or anyone bold enough to cross certain invisible lines? This was no longer just about a wounded son, it was about power. The Harris family suddenly found themselves up against more than a corrupt prison system. They were staring down an entire network built to keep the truth buried. T.I. and Tiny weren't just grieving, they were gearing up for war. They weren't fighting to protect a reputation anymore, they were fighting for their family's survival. Every step forward came with a new wall of resistance, every clue led to another cover-up, but the Harrises refused to back down. No matter how deep the danger ran, they were determined to drag the truth into the light, even if it meant burning down the system that tried to destroy them. The deeper the Harris family dug, the uglier it got. They weren't just chasing justice anymore, they were up against forces. Powerful, invisible forces that clearly didn't want anyone uncovering what really happened to King Harris. Whoever was behind this wasn't just hiding a violent incident, they were protecting something massive, something that could shake the very core of the system itself. And as T.I. and Tiny kept pushing forward, a bone-chilling truth began to surface. This wasn't just about King. His attack was only the opening act of a story that had been buried for years. What they'd stumbled into was bigger, darker, and far more dangerous than anything they could have imagined. The deeper they went, the clearer it became. This was a fight they couldn't walk away from. And with each passing day, the truth seemed to slip further from reach, hidden behind walls built to never be broken. But quitting wasn't an option. It wasn't about King anymore, it was about cracking open a system that had spent years hiding its dirtiest secrets. T.I. and Tiny Harris were in too deep to turn back now. The investigation had reached its boiling point, and the pressure was suffocating everyone involved. Each new revelation made the puzzle a little clearer, and yet, every piece they found opened up 5 more questions. What they were uncovering wasn't just a crime, it was a warning. The realization hit hard: this wasn't a random act of violence. It was part of a design, something calculated, powerful, and meant to keep the truth buried forever. It wasn't just violence, it was a message, loud and deliberate. And that message wasn't meant only for King Harris. It was a warning shot aimed squarely at the entire Harris family. The deeper they dug, the more twisted the story became. What the authorities brushed off as a simple inmate fight turned out to be anything but. This was a coordinated effort, a move to shut King up before he could open his mouth about what he'd witnessed. Inside those walls, T.I. and Tiny Harris weren't just celebrities anymore, they were targets. Someone wanted to make sure their son never spoke again, and every trail the family followed led straight back to one place, the prison system itself. As the private investigators peeled back the layers, the cover-up became impossible to ignore. People inside the facility were scrambling to bury the truth. The camera malfunction was no coincidence, it was strategy. Footage vanished, reports contradicted each other, and the silence from officials screamed louder than any confession. The timing was almost too precise to believe. Just as King started preparing to go public about the corruption and abuse he'd seen behind bars, just as he was ready to expose it all, someone made sure he'd never get the chance. This wasn't just about silencing a young man, it was about protecting an empire built on control and fear. This wasn't just about silencing King Harris, it was a warning, a brutal reminder to anyone thinking about exposing the same darkness. The message was crystal clear: speak up, and you'll pay the price. And that warning wasn't just for King, it was for anyone brave enough to challenge the system. But T.I. and Tiny Harris weren't the kind to bow down. They refused to let fear win. Every time they got close to uncovering the truth, new walls went up, new threats appeared, but they kept pushing. The family doubled their efforts, more investigators, deeper digging, tougher questions. They weren't just seeking justice for their son anymore, they were waging a war for the truth itself, no matter how deep or dangerous it ran. But the more evidence they uncovered, the more terrifying the picture became. This wasn't about one boy, or even one family, it was about an entire system built on corruption and silence, a machine that would do anything to protect itself. King Harris had dared to speak, and the system made him pay the ultimate price. A young man's courage had exposed a monster, and now his parents were determined to make sure his voice wouldn't die with him. Then came the final twist, one so shocking it changed everything. The Harrises discovered that the web of power behind King's attack stretched far beyond the prison walls, and the truth was more dangerous than they'd ever imagined. Then came the real bombshell, the discovery that powerful figures far beyond the prison walls were pulling the strings. These weren't just corrupt guards or shady wardens, these were people with real influence, the kind who could make entire stories disappear. They weren't protecting the prison, they were protecting something much bigger. Somewhere along the way, King Harris had stumbled into a secret he was never meant to uncover, and now the entire Harris family was caught in the crossfire. But T.I. and Tiny weren't the type to run. They were all in, ready to burn down whatever walls of power stood in their way. King's brutal attack wasn't random, it was one piece of a massive puzzle, and the family was determined to solve it, no matter how high up the rot went. The deeper they connected the dots, the more they realized the terrifying scale of what they were dealing with. This wasn't just about saving their son, it was about exposing the dark machinery that had been running unchecked for years. And in this game, everyone had something to lose. The ones behind the cover-up were desperate to bury the truth, but every threat, every warning only fueled the Harrises' fire. The closer they got, the more dangerous it became. Still, the family stood their ground. The stakes were higher than ever, the pressure suffocating, but T.I. and Tiny were done playing nice. The countdown to the truth had begun, and the final showdown was coming fast. Whatever it took, whoever it exposed, they were ready. The deeper this twisted saga became, the clearer it was, King Harris's attack wasn't just a tragedy, it was the spark of a much bigger war. As the truth began to claw its way to the surface, the Harris family finally saw the bigger picture. They weren't just fighting for justice anymore, they were fighting for the future. The truth had to come out, and no matter how many powerful people tried to bury it, T.I. and Tiny weren't backing down. But the question still haunts everyone, who has the most to lose if the truth gets exposed, and how far would they go to keep it hidden? The battle for justice isn't ending here. It's just getting started. So what do you think really happened to King Harris? Will the Harris family manage to uncover the full truth behind the lies and corruption? Drop your thoughts down below, let's hear what side you're on. And if you want the latest updates as this story unfolds, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications, because this story? Oh, it's far from over.